Let's get right into it. The infrastructure. How is the infrastructure and how is it compared to other African countries and other islands I visited? Well, as you see, as we take this ride, the houses in the backdrop, they look well developed. The streets you see me walk throughout this Mauritius series are well developed. So overall, the main traffic and transport routes are well developed as well. They're in good condition. They have a metro system here in Mauritius, buses to take you where you need to go. How is Mauritius compared to other African countries I visited? Okay, I'm going to name the countries on my list, and that would be Morocco, Ethiopia, Cape Verde, and South Africa. So, just solely based on the infrastructure, I'm going to rate these countries from best, in my opinion, to the least. And it would go like this: South Africa, Mauritius, Morocco, Ethiopia, and Cape Verde last. So if I had to just rate islands in Africa that I visited so far, it would be Mauritius and Cape Verde. And to compare those two, I would say that Mauritius, their infrastructure is more advanced. But overall, South Africa is often considered the most developed when it comes to infrastructure in the continent of Africa. So if you go there, it's like going to Europe or like going to the US. It's a well developed country. Now comes the language. Majority of population speaks Mauritian Creole, while French is commonly used along with English. Also, you have some that may know Hindi, Tamil, or even Mandarin. If you only speak English and thinking of visiting Mauritius, you should not have a problem. But I did encounter a person at a grocery store that only spoke Mauritian Creole. And while I was talking to him, I could see that he didn't understand what I was talking about. So this could happen to you. But again, I only experienced this once. Next, let's talk about the currency. The name of the currency is the Mauritian rupee. $1 is almost 46 Mauritian rupees. And I found by staying downtown, my dollar carried me a long ways based on everything that was surrounded by me was in walking distance. So I saved a lot of money from not using taxis and eating from local restaurants along with cooking some of my meals. But your trip would probably be different from mine based on where you stay and your activities of do you drink, or are you the type that prefer American-based fast food restaurants? All these variables determine how the currency carries you throughout your length of stay. Now, let me give you an example of the cost of a hotel. This hotel is adjacent to the Bagatelle Mall. If you're wondering how this mall looks, here you go. I showed more of this mall from the inside and outside in a previous video called The Day I Met Her in Mauritius, so check that out. But basically, this hotel is adjacent to this shopping mall, and it's a popular shopping mall. But the hotel is a mid-scale 3-star hotel, and the price is 836 US dollars for 1 week for a 3-star hotel. So again, it's all about location and preference that would eventually determine the outcome of how that country's currency, in this case, it's the rupee, will make that trip expensive or inexpensive. So all I can say about the currency is make sure you do your own research of the place you choose to stay at. The currency conversion worked for me. I found Mauritius to be very cheap in my opinion. But again, it all depends on your activities and where you stay, and you have to add everything in. The beaches. Since it's an island, you're surrounded by many choices of beaches. So once you're here, you'll be able to find the beach that suits you based on the atmosphere of the location. And I can say my favorite still remains Tamarin Beach. If you visited Mauritius before, or if you're Mauritian, what's your go-to beach? What's your favorite beach? They're getting fish.
In these waters, you'll find dolphins and whales sometimes.
Along with surrounded by beaches, you're also surrounded by, as you can see, nature. So the air quality here I found much better than in South Africa, Ethiopia, and Morocco. The only other country I can compare the air quality to here in Mauritius is another island that I visited in Africa, and that is Cape Verde. There's many hidden gems as in places here in Mauritius to see and visit. Mauritius is a very scenic country. What I mean by this is that Mauritius provides lots of impressive, beautiful natural scenery. If you're into long walks in nature, hiking, beaches, skydiving, zip lining, parasailing, or even surfing, it's all here in Mauritius. Safety here in Mauritius. As of my knowledge, from being here a little over a month, Mauritius is generally considered to be a safe destination for tourists. One of the first things I asked my friend once I got here was, how is crime and safety here in Mauritius? And she already had told me that Mauritius is known for offering a safe and friendly environment to visitors and is believed to be amongst the most safest country in Africa. And I asked her this question is because I wanted to know how safe it was to walk around at night. I have never felt unsafe walking around downtown at night, getting food and snacks and walking back to my apartment. But one must know there is no such thing as a perfect country, and news of thefts and crime do occur here like any other country in the world. The only difference is it's less. When you visit certain countries other than yours, the transition of different apps appear along with some of your favorite apps that may become obsolete. So I'm just going to give you two of the most important apps that you will need while visiting Mauritius. The first most important one is some type of weather app that should be already installed on your phone. And this is just to see how the days will be, because one minute it could be a sunny day while in a few hours it could turn out to be a rainy day. So you want to know how to dress based on the weather. And depending on the time of month you visit, some type of weather app is going to be vital. Next is some type of ride sharing app, because yes, there is no Uber here, there is no Bolt in Mauritius, and also there is no Grab ride sharing app here in Mauritius. And some of you may be thinking about why these are popular apps, why there's no Bolt, why there's no Grab, why there's no Uber here in Mauritius. And the reason is because what's popular to you doesn't mean it's popular in another country. And this is because of many varying reasons. And one could be that Mauritius is a very small island. And the market, since it's a small island, is not large enough to justify the investment required for Uber or Grab to establish some type of presence. A number two could be, since Mauritius is a small country and having Uber, the already established traditional type of service, which comes from a taxi, the taxi industry would become small based on this new ride sharing type of app. And in number three could be that Mauritius requires specific regulations and licensing requirements that make it difficult for these new type of companies to operate here. Now, I do not know which of the three is the reason why Uber, Grab, or Bolt is not here in Mauritius, but different countries have their own different reasons of why not to allow these new companies to exist in their country. I remember when I was going to Brazil and Uber first came out, it was lots of protests in Brazil against Uber to exist and operate in the country of Brazil. And then over months and a year, guess what happened? They let in. Uber was operating in Brazil and it still does. And then you have another African country I visited, Ethiopia. Same thing. There is no Grab. There is no Uber. The app they have is their own Ethiopian based ride sharing app that people can use when you visit the country of Ethiopia. Also, you have China. And China, their main thing is we do not want any data going back to the US. So we're not going to have any type of US apps, no matter if it's Uber, TikTok, anything you can imagine. What they did is they developed their own apps that are very similar to the apps I just named. Instead of having Uber, they have their own ride sharing app. Instead of having TikTok, they have Bike Dance, which is basically the same thing, but their own version that they use only in their country. So different countries have their own different reasons of why not to have American or European based apps in their own country. And what they do is they develop their own app. And this is the route that Mauritius chose. So you have Yugo, which is a Mauritian based ride sharing app to use. And also you have Motaxi, which is another Mauritian based app. So they're keeping all the data and all the money within their own country of Mauritius, which is not a bad idea at all. But who knows? Maybe in 5 years, maybe Uber or Grab or Bolt might be here in Mauritius, but I highly doubt it. Now, the weather. This is why I said it's a good idea to have some type of weather app and to make use of it because it can rain anytime while you're visiting here in Mauritius. But I can say the temperatures are warm all year around. Between like for Americans, it would be like 70 to 80 degrees. So to your typical American, that's hot. I already knew what I was in store for before I came here to Mauritius, so I was prepared. So when you're scheduling your trip here to Mauritius, make sure you choose a comfortable month for you to come and visit because December to I would say March is the wettest months. And during this time, as you can see, the island can experience heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, and it can happen like I mentioned any time of the day. So make sure you use that app to see if it's a good time to visit or to see if it's a good time to come outside because if you do come during the wettest months in Mauritius, you will experience what I experienced. But I didn't mind whatsoever because this is a vacation for me. And after a week of staying here, I already knew in mind that I was going to extend my stay for over a week. So for a couple of days out of over a month of a little rainfall didn't hurt me whatsoever. But if you choose to stay for a week or two, you might want to consider what month you could visit. But again, that all depends also on your job and also when you have time available to take any type of vacation. Also, yes, there is a cyclone season here in Mauritius, and typically it runs from November to about April. So that's another reconsideration of when to come. But not every year there's an actual cyclone. And you might be thinking, well, I know what a tsunami is, but what is a cyclone? Cyclones are tropical storms that can bring strong winds, heavy rainfall, and rough seas. So that's another thing you want to monitor before you visit. It's always a good idea to monitor the weather before you visit any country, especially if that country has a cyclone season. So you want to take everything I said about the weather in consideration before you make your plans to travel here. One week it rained so much, it rained like 3 days in a row, that the apartment I stayed in, as you can see on the floor, it was becoming a little bit flooded. And this was solely based on the outside balcony does not have some type of drainage system. So the water just builds up and it got a little deep enough for it to seep inside the apartment. So every day it rained, I had to pay close attention to the balcony to see how deep the water was getting, and I had to just keep mopping the water outside the bathroom area so it wouldn't lead into the kitchen area. The food. Well, Mauritius is a tropical region, therefore, there's lots of different types of seafoods you can try. And you have to understand, Mauritius is a blend of flavors and influence from a diverse cultural heritage, which includes Indian, Chinese, African, and European influences. So there's a variety of different types of spices and things you can try out here, and I'm guaranteed once you visit, you too will say that Mauritian food is very good. The distance and cost of the trip. Mauritius is an island located in the Indian Ocean and is very far from the US. So, if you live here, which is in the US, expect to pay between $1,500 and $2,000 round trip. And also on top of that, there is no direct flights from the US to Mauritius. The top 3 direct flights are in France, London, and South Africa. These places have much cheaper flights to Mauritius, and they're, again, direct flights. So if you're American, you're paying an expensive price for a vacation. But once here, the prices for everyday things go down since the American dollar is more than the Mauritian rupee. So don't worry. Along with that, also, to tell people you visited an African island, they will be wondering, well, where at? And once you tell them Mauritius, they will be curious of how the place is, since I'm highly certain they never heard of Mauritius. Also, if you're married or dating and want an exotic getaway, the only place that I have visited that most people do not know about per se, like a Bali, Maldives, or some place in the Caribbean, is right here in Mauritius. Therefore, this destination is more exotic than most countries you can think of. Also, something that might not be mentioned in videos is retirement. If you're at retirement age and looking for cheaper places to retire, because I already can see in the future that the UK, France, the US, and other places will be very expensive to retire in. And that's based on the rising cost of living. And the climate sucks in those places I just mentioned, the UK, France, and US. You have very cold winters, snow, gray skies, not enough sun. It's not a tropical place like here in Mauritius. Here in Mauritius, the climate is tropical, mostly all year round. It's more safer. So for my retirement age South Africans who say South Africa is getting more dangerous, you could settle here also in Mauritius. The healthcare system here is modern and the cost also is affordable. There are retirement programs on the internet that Mauritius offers benefits and incentives to live here if you're thinking about retirement. So these are some things you should research on your own. And most importantly, I can say, unlike some African countries, here in Mauritius, you can actually buy a house. So Mauritius is not just a romantic, exotic getaway, but it's also a place, if you're at that age to retire, this is a place you should consider. And not just for retirees or couples that want to get away from their own country. It's also for single people like myself who just wish to travel different countries in the world. Now comes the packing and leaving of Mauritius. I've been here over a month and I enjoyed my stay. I can't say anything bad about my visit here in Mauritius. And it's time to move on to another country. When you travel, it's some countries that you may have a short visit of like a week, but you know within that week that somehow you're going to revisit that country. And Mauritius is one of those countries that I will revisit. The location of Mauritius is situated in a location where I can either go back to mainland Africa and revisit a country or explore a new country, or from here I could go somewhere in Asia. I thought about even India because India is in the continent of Asia. So I have many choices from Mauritius where to go to next. So make sure you stay tuned to see where. So there you have it. I gave you some insightful information from being here in Mauritius over a series of videos, and this is the final video here. I made some friends here in Mauritius, and also I have lots of memories here. But again, it is time to go to another country or revisit another country. Stay tuned for that. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, go and catch up on some of my previous videos.